Welcome everybody to today's program. The topic we are going to address today is very interesting. It's titled Strength-Based Leadership Workshop. My name is Nekme Obasoge. I'm going to do the introduction. While Katie is going to do a part of the presentation, Karen will take the rest part of the presentation. It was divided into 3 parts. So you are all welcome to the program. I'm going to do the overview of today's presentation. Like what I said earlier, it was divided into 3 parts. I'm doing the introduction part, while Kerry will do the second part. Karen will do the last part. So introduction to strengths-based leadership, how to identify strengths as a leader, and how to identify strengths as an individual. So now, what is the definition of strengths-based leadership? The strengths-based approach allows people to see themselves at their best and their values. By using these strengths and talents, you can impact the community. So this is basically the definition of strengths-based leadership. To help the community grow and strive, we need to tap into people's strengths. I personally believe that unidentified strengths is a brainwaste to self-development and the community at large. That is my own definition of unidentified strengths. So strengths-based leadership is an approach used to lead others and builds on what is strong rather than what is wrong. Research on evidence-based best practice shows that strengths-based leadership empowers leaders and the people who follow them and fosters healthy and positive community building. So we cited this. This quote was taken from this website. The next one goes to Katie. Katie, take it away. We cannot hear you.
You hear me now? Hi there. Thank you so much, Nekpan. I appreciate it. So now we're going to get people to start thinking about their own strengths. So what do you think your strengths are? What strengths do you have? What strengths do you admire in others? Self-awareness that they spoke about in the videos here is very important, but we don't always have this self-awareness. So it's good to ask other people as well. But I know that one of my personal strengths is positivity. I know that I'm quite positive and I like to keep everything copacetic. I like to keep everybody's spirits up. Another characteristic of mine is that I can be quite loud and I can be quite good at getting people's attention. What to do with this attention once I have it is a different story. That might not be one of my strengths, but my strength is getting people's attention. So yeah, with everybody though has different strengths. So let's ask Nekpen, what do you think one of your strengths are?
I would say leadership skills. My strengths, right from when I was young, my parents used to bring some adults who are even older than me for me to babysit. So
wow, okay.
Even a few months ago, my elderly brother reminded me that when I was young, I used to give some responsibilities to them. They were older. Even one of them is dead now. They were older than me, but I will give them some tasks to do where I will pay them at the end of everything. So I have been playing the role of a leader for a very long time since I was young. So even when I was in the university here in Canada, York University, my second year, I founded an organization where I coordinate immigrant women. So I've been doing that. I have many organizations that I am still coordinating as we are speaking. So I think
that's great.
Yes, I have this leadership strength. That's what I would say.
That's great.
Yeah.
That's great. Karen, what would you say one of your strengths is?
Okay, so I'm not going to go into details as Nekpen, but I would say one of my strengths is listening. And I'd also say that, and it's good to listen because then you get to hear everything. And I'm also good at planning and organizing. So those are some of my strengths. Thank you.
And I would agree. I would agree wholeheartedly with both Nekpen and Karen. So thanks for that, guys. So let's move on to the next slide, please, Nekpen. So now we're going to talk about the 5 ways to discover other people's strengths. So now we're going to look externally at other people. And as leaders ourselves, let's put ourselves in the leadership position here. We have to identify other people's strengths in order to be able to build teams. As was mentioned in the video that we watched, you want teams to be varied, right? You don't want everybody to have the same strengths. The different strengths, the more number of strengths that you have on a team, the more you can bring together people with different strengths, the better and the stronger the team will be. So the first way that we want to identify people's strengths is get people to expand their definition of what a strength is. So often we have kind of heteronormative, patriarchal ways of looking at strengths. We think it's just being strong, right? Might makes right. No, actually, compassion, as was mentioned in the video, is also a massive strength. So in a lot of people's minds, they have a narrow definition of what that strength is. We're going to try and expand it. Another way of discovering people's strengths as a leader is ask people what they like to do. They don't always realize that what they like doing is one of their strengths, right? But on a team, you want to get people to do what they want to do. So what they like to do, that's a strength. Also, ask people what they're good at, mastery, and what other people say about them as praise. So praise from others can be a very good indication of strength. Also, number 4, ask people to take formal strength assessments like the Clifton assessment and the Myers-Briggs test. And we'll talk more about those in a second. And then finally, in order to get people to think about their strengths, it's also good to get them to think about their weaknesses and contrast that. So we're going to look at what's called a SWOT analysis, which examines S, strengths, W, weaknesses, O, opportunities, and T, threats. So we're going to look at each one of these in detail. Nekpen, can you please advance to the next slide?
Okay.
So the first one that we're going to look at here in detail is how to get people to expand their definition of strength. So when we think of strengths, we often narrow our definition of this concept to specific skills and traits. And while you should be proud of skills like critical thinking, right? That's a good one. And great communication, that's another strength. We are often much more than just our resumes, right? So we can expand our concepts of strengths to encompass all areas of our lives. And in the video review of the book that we saw, they talked about compassion and kindness and how these are so important and they're often not thought of as strengths. So things like emotional intelligence, kindness, resilience is a huge one. Refusing to give up in the face of seemingly unsurmountable obstacles. That's a huge one. Seeing the good in everyone. If you're a leader, in order to be able to see, really put together a great team, you have to see, and as we know, everybody has something to contribute. So seeing the good in other people is hugely important. Being a reliable friend, patience, determination and consistency, and persistence and perseverance. These are all characteristics that people don't always think about as specific strengths. So getting people to expand what they define as strengths is a great way to get people to discover their own strengths. Can I have the next slide, please? So if you ask people what they enjoy doing, this is so important because if you're putting together a team, you don't want to give people, tasks that they don't like to do. So if you ask them what they enjoy doing, either now or as children, that's what I'm talking about in the past or the present. So asking people simply what they enjoy doing can show you what their strengths are. And also, other people aren't always sure what they possess as strengths. So it's a really good way. So revealing these hidden strengths can also ask people you can ask them what they define as mastery, what they're masterful over. And that just means mastery over an activity means that the person has a consummate skill that's a bit above what they just enjoy doing. It means they're quite good at it. If you show mastery of a particular skill or language, you have shown that you've learned and understood it completely and you have no difficulty using it. And that you can use it to be in the flow. And what's flow? I think we've all experienced being in the flow of things at one point in our lives. You know those times when you feel your best and you perform at your best? That's flow. You get so focused on a specific task that everything else disappears. That's when you're in a flow state. It's when your actions and your awareness merge together and your sense of self just vanishes because you're so focused on your task. This is a really good the state of people to be in, and ask them what they do when they're in their flow state is a great way to figure out their strengths. And finally, being in the zone. This is similar to being in a flow state. If you're in the zone, you're happy or excited because you're doing something very skillfully and easily. So this is a great way, you know, asking people what they do when they're in the zone or when they're in their flow is a great way to figure out what their strengths are. Can we have the next slide, please? So asking what people are good at, and also asking people to pay attention to praise from others. So if you ask people the following 5 questions and you get them to actually write down their answers so that they can look at them and analyze them. So you're going to ask them what they love doing, which we talked about, what comes easily to them, what do they look forward to doing? What are they anticipating? When do they say, "Ooh, I get to do this tomorrow. Yay, what is that?" What things do they do that other people say that you do well? Because sometimes we take for granted what we can really do well. So asking other people what they do, you know, and paying attention to praise from other people is really important. And also finally, what tasks make you feel good. So if you can write down all these answers, this will reveal some of your strengths. And as I mentioned, you might not have been paying attention to your own strengths, but chances are other people have. So if you listen carefully to others when they notice positive things about you, you're going to discover what your strengths are. You're going to discover some hidden strengths. Pay attention to your positive feedback, from the positive feedback that you obtain from supervisors or coworkers, because we often have strengths that go overlooked, and because they come so naturally to us. So for people to discover what they're uniquely good at, you have to ask these people these 5 questions and ask them to write them down, either on paper or on a digital document. Can I have the next slide, please? So asking people to form the formal strength assessments and personality tests. So here we have just 2 examples of the strengths-based quizzes, and there's lots of these online. Everybody loves taking personality tests, right? Remember back in the days of Facebook, in the early days, there were so many of those. So the Clifton Strengths Assessment and the VS Survey of Character Strengths are kind of the big 2. And we have links. If Nekpen, if you don't mind clicking on one of the links so we can just talk about one of them quickly, maybe about the Clifton. Let's take a look at the Clifton. So yeah, live your best life using your strengths. So this is a free test, by the way. You can do these tests online, and you can really figure out, you know, you're unique. We're all unique. We can figure out who we are by doing these tests because they're given to a lot of people. So it's a very broad sort of assessment of, and there's huge slices of the population who have taken these. So if we want to go back to the presentation for a second, we can also look at the other one that's similar is the VS Survey of Character Strengths, but we don't need to click on that. Okay, we can just, this is another one though that people can explore in their own time. And it's very specific. There's a lot of character strengths that ask you about your character. So personality tests can really help you better understand yourself and your strengths. So the personality test then, the classic is called the Myers-Briggs Type Indicator, or MBTI, and it's developed based on psychological personality types, and it identifies 16 distinct personality types. So you can figure out if you're more extroverted, if you're more analytical, if you're more judging, if you're more intuitive. The Myers-Briggs has a whole bunch of axes, and they place you on these different axes, and they really do an interpretation of what your strengths are. So it's a great thing to do in any case. I'm sure a lot of people have done them already. And then finally, we've got the big 5 character traits. This is popular as the, can we go back for a sec? I'm just going to talk one more about the last one, the big 5 character traits. So a lot of psychologists really prefer to test personality based on these big 5 character traits. People are tested based on how high or low they score according to varying psychological factors. These are openness, which is characteristics like imagination and insight, conscientiousness, which are things like thoughtfulness or good impulse control, extroversion or introversion, which is excitability, social ability, talkativeness, assertiveness, emotional expressiveness, me, in other words, agreeableness. This personality dimension includes attributes such as trust, altruism, kindness. These are all very important strengths to have both as a leader and as a member of a group, and other pro-social behaviors. And then finally, the last one is neuroticism. And if you have low neuroticism, then you tend to be more stable and emotionally resilient. So those are just some examples, 4 examples of the sort of 4 biggest personality tests that can really help you discover other people's strengths. And the last slide, if we can move to the last slide. So in order to get people to think about their strengths, a good way to contrast this is with their weaknesses. And then if you get people to write stuff down in a grid, they can really visualize what their strengths are. And this SWOT analysis stands for strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, threats. And as you can see, there are 4, it's a quadrant. And we just sort of list what a subject's strength, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats are. So this is a really simple way to discover positive and negative factors in any context, not just in our own personality context, but specifically this 4-quadrant diagram that identifies these SWOTs. And creating one, it forces you to think critically about what your circumstances are. And it really forces you to find out what kind of obstacles you have to overcome, or what obstacles you kind of have to minimize in a group. So you can also use the SWOT analysis to help determine steps that you can take for your short-term and for your long-term success. So yeah, thank you so much. Oh, and that's the website that explains a little more. It goes into a little bit more detail regarding this concept of the SWOT analysis. So yeah, thanks so much, Nekpen. So now that we've learned how to identify people's strengths as a leader, I'm going to pass it over to Karen, who's going to speak about how to identify your strengths as an individual. Thank you.
Karen?
Yeah, thank you, Katie. That was amazing. Great job, and welcome everyone. Happy to be here and happy to share with you all. So the purpose of this section is to really zoom in on our strengths as individuals, and to, I guess, reiterate or remind ourselves that we are all leaders in our own right, under different circumstances and in different situations. So piggybacking on what Nekpen said earlier, she gave an illustration as herself as a leader in her family. So some of us are leaders in our family. We play different leadership roles in our family, in our community, in our social groups, and so on. And also, I just want to reiterate that strength-based leadership takes different shapes and different forms. And so not all leaders or leadership roles look the same way or play out in the same way. So that leads me into the next slide. So this is, and let me just minimize this right here, right? So I can see, right? So this takes me into our first question. And this is really, the purpose of this is just for us to reflect and to think about how we lead in our everyday lives, in our communities, at work, and so on. So this question is, what type of leader are you? So are you an upfront leader? And what that means is, are you the one who normally represents your group? Are you the one who is always speaking, always, upfront representing your group? Or are you the type of leader that leads from within? You build relationships within the group. You may be an influencer in your group. You're not necessarily upfront, but you are leading on different tasks and on different activities within your group. Or are you in the background, leading from the back, consulting, advising, giving feedback, and so on? That's still leadership. So this slide shows that the leadership doesn't necessarily have to look the same way, and that we all lead in different ways, under different circumstances, at different times. And I'll just go through all the slides, and then at the end, I'll open the floor for us to discuss. So Nekpen, can you go to the next slide? Yes, this other slide is really to highlight how, and this is also piggybacking on something in the video, where the video spoke about how, as individuals, we display our strengths. And this is really important, and it works to the overall good in the end, because not all of us need to be, good at relationship building or influencing or strategic thinking. We all need different groups. So this is just a broad headings under which some of us, may fall. And as you can hear, my son is competing with me, so excuse me for the background noise. But so just to show the different forms of leadership. So you may be good at executing, making things happen in your community. You may be good at influencing, reaching a broad audience and getting people to buy into your ideas and to support what you're doing. You may be a strategic thinker. You may be the one who, is able to keep people focused on the goals ahead, on the objectives. And you may also be the relationship builder, building cohesion and long-term relationships within your organization. And let us remember that, like I said earlier, we are leaders in organizations, in our family, in our community. So while I go through this, it's important that we remember that we play different leadership roles, right? And so all of these can be related to the different roles we play in our lives. Next slide, next one. Okay, so these are some questions that are essentially reflective questions that we can think about and perhaps discuss later on, and providing we have time. So one of the questions that we want to ask ourselves in order to understand how we lead and what strengths we have. So the first question is, what type of activities interest you most? And, this ties into what Katie was saying before. So from, a personal level, this is something we can ask ourselves. And how often do we listen to our emotions? What are the things that we do with ease that generally achieve a good result? And all of these tie into each other, because what interests you most is going to give you good emotions. You're going to feel good about doing it, and you are going to get good results. So they all tie in, but asking yourself these questions individually will help you to identify essentially what you're good at, and that is essentially your strength. Next slide, next one. These are some other questions that we can ask. So what do others say that you do well? And this is important because sometimes, because you do the thing so well and it comes so naturally to you, you may not necessarily realize that it's a strength and you take it for granted. For example, you may be good at, fixing someone's hair. You may be good at cooking a particular dish and it comes so natural to you. And so, if people keep telling you, oh, you're so good at frying chicken, perhaps, it's something to reflect on to see if, do I really have strength in this? And the next question, what are the things that you look forward to doing? So what are the, ties in again to the question about emotions. What do you feel happy about? What do you look forward to doing? And the final question, what tasks give you a sense of mastery? And that is very important because like I said again, there are some things that we do so well, we master so well, and we take it for granted. And it's something we do every day, but sometimes we need to take a step back and just to think about, what have we mastered? What do we do well? What gives us a sense of confidence? And some of those things will help us to identify some of the strengths that we have. Next slide, next one.
Carrie, are we going to allow the audience to answer some of these questions?
Yeah, so I'll just run through and then afterwards we can go back to those slides and then we can have them ask the questions. Unless someone wants to ask something now, we could do that.
Okay.
So, and like I said, we can go back, but just to ensure that we cover the material and then we can open up for discussion. So this other slide is, and it's repeating and reinforcing what was said earlier in the video, building strength-based relationship. So whether we see ourselves as leaders, an upfront leader, someone who leads from within, from in the middle, or someone who leads in the background, or whether we see ourselves as followers. These are things that everyone needs. So in a team, whether we are in a team, in a community, in an organization, everyone needs to be able to trust each other, right? No one likes dishonesty. And compassion is also very important. Everyone wants to feel cared for, Stability is also important. Everyone wants a sense of security, and you want to know that, you can depend on your teammates, on your community members, and so on, in our different leadership positions. And hope, we all want to know that, whatever we are doing, we can have a positive outlook, and, we are all positive about achieving our goals and our mission. Next slide, next one. Okay, so essentially this slide is wrapping everything up. So now that we have, discussed how to identify the strengths in others and in ourselves, how can we use this information and knowledge to strengthen our communities through our work? So one of the things is, improving ourselves. And how do we improve ourselves? We improve on ourselves by first becoming aware of what our strengths are and how we lead as individuals and even as supervisors or directors or whatever position you play in your community, in your organization, in your team. So becoming aware of, how you lead and what your strengths are, and also investing and building on those strengths and those skills that you would have identified in yourself, having reflected, of course, on these questions and whatever other questions that you want to ask yourself, and thereby, increasing your self-confidence and being able to be a better leader and to better execute the strengths that you have. So, and also being supportive and understanding of others that we volunteer with and that we work with, and helping us to be more collaborative as, people working together in our community and on our teams. And next slide, Nathan. Right, so now that we have discussed all of that, I just wanted to ensure that we cover the information in time. I just want to open the floor up for any questions, thoughts, discussions, and we can go back to these questions. And I'll allow persons to share what you think, how you feel, if you have any questions or comments about these questions or anything else in the presentation. I'm unable to see the hands. So.
Thank you, Carrie. Let's see. So if you have any question, you can raise your hand. Anyone here?
Just while we're waiting for some questions, I'd like to speak a little more about a topic that Karen, we've got Vanessa asking a question here.
Okay, Vanessa,
do you want to go ahead?
Oh, sure. I was just going to say I had a bit of a reflection, but go ahead, Katie, and I can go after you because you were mid-thought. It's not urgent.
Oh, thanks. No, I was just going to talk about how important self-awareness is, and how I just wanted to reiterate the point that they made in the video about how individuals we can't be good at everything, right? Nobody can. We're humans and we're not that well-rounded. So self-awareness and the ability to say, oh, I'm not good at that. Let's let somebody else do it, right? It's so important. And the individual mustn't be necessarily well-rounded, that the teams should be well-rounded, right? Remember what they said? So you want to pick people with different strengths so that you do have a team that can cover all the bases. Individuals can't do that, but teams can. Go ahead, Vanessa, thanks. We've got two people with their hands up.
Yeah, I was just going to say I liked when it was going through talking a lot about the fact that leaders give as much to their home life, like successful leaders, as they do to their team. right? And it's a very cohesive unit, because sometimes we're at risk of biting off more than we can chew, and we end up doing a C+ job when we could have done an A. And I really appreciate that too, is real solid time management skills, but also that having people on the team that are like you is a trap that I would often fall into. I like people like me, what the work style is to expect around me, but you're right, it's not necessarily the best for the group. And when that healthy dialogue happens and you can have those meaningful, rich discussions that might not always be pleasant, it is for the best advancement and outcomes of the team. And that's a skill that when I'm uncomfortable, it's usually a sign of growth, right? When I'm learning other people's perspectives.
Yeah.
And I love that too, how you differentiated. You did a really good job, Karen, to also talking about how the leaders are different. Some sit in the backgrounds and are the, like, you know, the jockeys and the advisors and the wisdom. And I appreciate that, you know, and I appreciate not everyone has to speak all the time and be upfront. And they're equally strong, in my opinion. You know, I'll often reflect on advice from others because I really value their opinion. So thank you. It was really good.
Thank you, Vanessa. And Daniel, you have your hand
Daniel,
up.
go ahead.
Oh, thank you so much, folks. You know, if we're just, I was just attending to something. Like I said, I gotta get ready to leave soon. But if we're answering these questions, I for one would like to take a crack at it. And you know, so for example, for things that I enjoy doing the most is obviously speaking, sometimes before thinking. How often do I listen to my emotions? I would say fairly often if I like the emotion. What are the things that I do with each generally and that generally achieve a good result from? I would say speaking, writing, and anything to do with communication. And I feel myself pretty at ease with those types of things. I'd also like to point out how interesting it is to hear your perspectives on how you should go with your strengths as opposed to just trying to build your weaknesses to get them up to par. I've noticed how like in school it's like, well, you're good at this, therefore you won't do it. It's like you're bad at like arithmetic, but say you're good at writing. Therefore, you will just do arithmetic for like this whole semester just to get you up to par. Really, I mean, everybody should have a basic understanding of it, but might not be the best use of time. Thank you so much. One and all, I have to leave, but this was a great presentation. Thanks again so much for putting it on, and I'll see you all later.
Thank you,
Thank you,
Daniel.
Daniel.
Thanks, Daniel.
So we have another person here. Angeline, go ahead.
Hi, thank you. I really appreciate this presentation and all the good questions and resources that you've offered. I've been kind of on an exploring journey for a while, asking a lot of these questions. And one thing that I noticed is that I'm not a common personality type. And if you're immersed in environments where there is nobody like you, it's hard to know what you like. Like, I'm a very empathetic person. That's one of my skills. I'm one of those relationship builders. And so, you know, if you come from that environment, like, I guess what I'm trying to say is if you find these questions hard, keep at it and try and connect with like-minded people, because just as much as teams need diversity, individuals also need support. So if you have trouble answering these questions, which I know I used to, it might be that you need to find community before you can really contribute to that diversity in a really self-empowering way. So not so much a question, experience.
Good point.
Yeah,
Really good points.
Thank
Yeah,
you.
I totally can I just comment on what Angeline said? I totally get what you're saying. And I find that sometimes these questions kind of place you in a box. So, yes. Right. So, and just to say that it's not a science per se, but, yeah, you know, people have to understand that it's more of guidance. And so we don't take it as a science. Yeah.
Yeah, I know. And it's an art, right? Where each question kind of leads to more questions, and it all builds that self-awareness, right?
Yes, yeah. Yes. Because that's how I take it, because I don't find that I necessarily fit in any box also. And some of the things that they see as positive, I don't particularly agree. So I totally get what you're saying.
Yeah. And at the same time, if you're a helpful type and people say, oh, you're really good at this, you should do more of this, you think, okay, I'll do that. But it's not always what you enjoy. So all of the questions are valid, right? It's like, what are you good at? What comes naturally? And what do you enjoy? Not just one or the other, you know? It's kind of like a puzzle that comes together.
Mm-hmm. Thank
you, Angeline, for flagging that. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
We have John. John, go ahead.
Hello, everyone. I would usually tend to avoid answering any of these questions. I don't know. Where I would fit, and where I would fit and why or how. I seem to avoid moving forward in any particular direction, but people, I think, say that I do have something to offer, but just exactly what it is and how to find it out. So, anyways, that's all I have to say.
Maybe try some of the quizzes because they're
Yeah.
kind of fun to do, and it's the most sort of it's the least subjective, right? It's going to be quite objective. So if you're not sure, and if you're not sure, what other people say, that's where the personality test and the quizzes can come in handy, because it'll give you a general direction to go into for you to explore. It'll give you like a direction or something about yourself that you can explore. So just a suggestion.
Thank you, Jen. Jasmine.
Yeah, I was just, I just wanted to reply to John because John was speaking. And I know John from some of the great volunteer work that he does. So for example, John, you were saying you have trouble maybe identifying some of your strengths, but one of the things, key messages that came out of this workshop tonight was maybe you should ask other people what they think your strengths are. So for example,
Absolutely.
I think some of your strengths are you have great communication skills. You are very empathetic. In other words, you really feel for other people and you make people feel comfortable. And I think your observation skills are amazing because I know that, you've listened to, we talk about affordable housing, and then you've listened to some of the issues. And, for example, we're concerned about, and you are concerned about, the fact that people in the Etobicoke Lakeshore area are very vulnerable. They're not safe anymore. And if they're renting privately. So, for example, if somebody buys the building, you feel very vulnerable because you could lose your housing. And then if you've had affordable housing, you have to find somewhere else that's not affordable. And I think you've been so good at sharing those messages to some of the key leaders and the key politicians. And I mean, you have so many strengths in that area that I won't go on because I don't want you to feel too strong, but you have so many great skills and things. And I think that that certainly, if you were to ask me what kind of area of service, I think certainly the nonprofit sector would be very, very, very lucky and fortunate to have you. So I would certainly look at that.
Thank you so much, Jasmine. That's very encouraging. Thank you.
Yeah.
I'm glad to participate with Lalag.
Yeah, and can I just add also that some of these questions, and I think, Jasmine, you will share the presentation with those who wish to get it. So, John, another challenge to you, in addition to what Jasmine said, is to perhaps in your quiet time, reflect, and as Katie said, just write down your answers. And so you have your own time to go through and to reflect, and also ask other people, like Jasmine, who would have worked with you, what do you think about, this particular area? So that, I think, will help to nudge you in the right way. But I think Jasmine is totally correct because I've been on the HAG committee listening and hearing you. And so, that's on point. Thank you.
Yeah, it's the same thing that we have here that Jasmine just did right now. What things do others say you do well? So Jasmine has identified some of the strengths of John right now in our face. So John, I hope you will build on that from now on. Yeah. So any other question or contribution?
Thanks, Ned and Peck.
Carmelita, can I say something? Can I ask something?
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. There was a question there, what type of a leader are you? And then it resonated in me because right now, I think I was an upfront leader because when I worked at the bank for 30 years and also worked or volunteered in Toastmasters for 17 years, I've been so competitive. I did leadership and communication skills training. And then lately, after I retired, I think I'm more of a leader within me, and I'm still trying to see whether, not question what came out of all my leadership skills and things like that. But I don't know. I've just settled down or something. It's like right now, as retired, I just enjoy being a playmate to my grandkids, but I really miss I know that there's something I'm missing. Like, I'm not that I'm not contributing to the community. I still read in church and do other volunteer work, but I'm still in quandary. I'm still questioning about myself, like, what type of work as a leader or a contributor to community do I want to do? So these questions that you ask would really be helpful because I know I felt happy, fulfilled, and really felt something that I know I can contribute something when I was in Toastmasters and it was working. But I said, that cannot be I don't want to be, identified as that alone. So these questions are really good. I mean, for me or for us to sit down and really question our leadership skills, or questions our what person
Who we are.
Yeah, who we are, exactly. What and who we are. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yes, it
Absolutely.
makes total sense. And that's why when I was reflecting on it, I thought of it like that, because sometimes I'm not necessarily an upfront leader, but sometimes people put me up front, but I prefer to sit in the background and probably be a part of the team and to say my little part. But I mean, I will go up front if I need to, like in this situation, but I'm not the one who's going to say, okay, I want to speak. So but there are some persons who that's where they strive, right? So we all have to be cognizant of where we flourish most.
I guess we can be all those three characteristics depending on the situation, depending on the timing, depending on, like you can be all those three, I think.
Yes, that's true.
Very true.
Yeah, depending on the stage of your life, depending on the situation, and depending on what you're going through right now. Like if you wanna back out and just be a background leader, it's in there.
Yes, that's true. And I see Angeline, if I may go to Angeline. I see Angeline has her hand up.
Yeah, sorry. I think Carmelita just said it, that it depends on your stage of life too. Like your personality and your preferences will change at different times of life, and the setting that you're in will also influence, which type of leader you are. If you're in a group of introverts and you're the most extroverted of those introverts, you're going to be more upfront of a leader than if you're in a group with a bunch of extroverts, people who are energized by talking out, thinking their thoughts out loud. I had a question about this slide with feeling. I think it's the slide before this one. One of the questions was, something about feelings. And I was wondering about
how often do you listen to your emotions?
Yeah, what is that about?
It's slide number 18, next time.
Yeah. How often do you listen to your own emotions? Is that what you're talking about?
Yeah, I was just wondering.
Some people try and repress them, right? Like a lot of people, when they get negative emotions, they'll like try and repress them right away. And so, you know, listening to your own emotions is important, listening to the positive and the negative ones, right? So making time and giving yourself space to really feel what you're truly feeling about something is really important, because maybe you've been told, oh, this is an enjoyable thing, and your whole life you're just doing it because you think you're supposed to be enjoying it, but do you actually enjoy it? You know, getting really to
Right.
know our true feelings around things isn't always easy, especially when we are in a culture with so much advertising, with so much influence, with so much societal pressure. Like we're told how to feel half the time, which makes no
Yeah.
sense, right? So in adulthood, one thing that we do is, you know, it's important to take time, give yourself space to really figure out what you enjoy doing, truly, what your true feelings about what you're doing are. And I think that, you know, the more often that you really listen and you sit down like that, and the more often you listen to your own emotions, the more connected you are to yourself, to your true self, and the more you're able to see your own strengths in contrast to other people's, and the more you're able to really put those into use within a team, the more you're feeling confident. The more confident you are, the more you're able to go into a group and say, hey, I'm good at this. This is one of my strengths.
That's very helpful. Thank you.
Thank you. John, are you there?
I think he just didn't put his hand down from before. I don't know if he has another comment.
No, he just
No,
okay.
that's the same hand.
If you hit the same button, it'll put the hand down. There you
go. Okay, thanks. Yes. Anyone?
Great.
Any other contribution? What is the YouTube? I like this question. What are the things you do is that you generally achieve a good result from?
Yeah, and if I can follow up on that a little bit, this is, I think, something that we all overlook from time to time, because you do it with so much ease. It's almost like the free things that we have in life, the air, the water, all of those things, we really don't notice it. But if one thing that really doesn't matter to our, you know, our livelihood, you know, goes wrong. Say, for example, the cable isn't working, or, you know, WhatsApp isn't working or something, it totally throws you off when that is not really important. So the things that are free and comes easy, like some people just know how to cook. And if you ask them, how do you make that? They have to really sit and think about it. And like one of my brothers, I think this is a good example also. Like from he was about 4 or 5, he was able to fix electronic stuff. And I remember asking him, how did you know how to fix the fan? How did you know? People used to take radio, fan, phone. And I'm like, how do you? And he was trying to explain or trying to figure out, how do I know? And I don't think he could explain. It just came easily to him. So I think this is what the question is saying. And so many times we are good at so many things, but we take it for granted, and we don't really think about it as a strength or something to really note. But this can even nudge us into or like the real path that we should be heading down in terms of even employment and occupation. So I think this is a really excellent question also.
Yeah, like what Karen just said, I have a brother who's very good at math. He would just look at it like this and solve it. Very easy. Even though he didn't study for exam, he will still get the highest grade. So he does it so easily. Like those of us who are not good at math, I continue to be wondering. Sometimes I'm asking, how do you know he said, no, you have to solve it like this, do it like this. Sometimes I get lost when he's trying to teach me. I can't do the follow-up to the end, how he ended getting certain answer to this math. So it's so easy for him, even though he didn't study for any exam, he will still get perfect grade. So it's something that you can do very, very easily and get good result from. That is part of his strengths. So yeah.
Can I mention something? It's Irene here. I can't see all of you, but I have to compliment those that went to the trouble of putting together this wonderful workshop on leadership. It is well worthwhile. I'm just wondering, would it be possible, since you've obviously all made notes and planned this, could this be put together in point form and made available? Because I think that it would be handy to have for people who maybe join the workshop in the future, or for people that come into the community and maybe want to have a wonderful directory like this.
Yeah, for
I want
sure.
to again comment on everything that they've done. They've obviously thought this out and really gone to a lot of trouble. So thank you again.
Yeah, thanks,
Yeah,
Irene.
that's true.
Thank you, Irene. Thank you.
We've got the PDF that's going to be distributed by Jasmine. So we've got like all the links and all the points that we've gone through. The entire presentation is going to be distributed. And that includes links to the websites that we were talking about and to the video that we watched. So everything will be made available, and likely we might even give the presentation again at the end of the series, right? So we can revisit all these points for people on the regular basis, because it's really important that people get to know what they're good at. I went through most of my life thinking that I was good at a whole bunch of things and that I was an introvert. And then I joined these groups and I found out that I'm anything but. So it's just interesting.
No, it is really a well-researched and well-put-together program. I commend everyone, and I'm glad to hear that it'll be available for all of us to refer to. I unfortunately didn't take down all the points.
So you don't need to. Don't worry.
I'm glad to hear that.
Yeah.
Thanks again. I'll mute myself now. Thanks.
Thanks.
Thanks, Irene.
So this video, we are recording it right now. It's going to be available on YouTube. So we're going to edit it a little bit and post it.
We're famous.
YouTube. Yes. So people can access it after today's lecture. Maybe tomorrow, I'm going to upload it on YouTube after editing the video. So we will share the link, and Jasmine can as well share the link among the community members who are interested. I think it's a very good one. Thank you all. If there is any other question or contribution, Jasmine, do you have anything to add, please?
Yeah, just that this is sort of one of, we hope, many workshops. We really want to share that with you. And the workshops really are about how we can improve and build our own skills, and how we can increase our personal satisfaction so that we can do things to have a positive impact on the community. And we're sort of learning and growing and also experimenting a little bit and having a few experiences. So we're hoping to sort of add some activities in addition to hosting workshops. I want to say that I'm going to let Vanessa say a few words, because Vanessa is actually leading our next workshop. And it certainly gels with what we were talking about tonight about strengths, empathy, and support. And I'm going to let her tell you a little bit more about that. But basically what we're trying to do is build our community spirit, build our skills, have some really good conversations, meet some really interesting people, maybe dabble and learn about some other volunteer opportunities that we can try out, test out. And basically what we want to do is, under one big umbrella, is to create some unity, to create some support for our community, to be better. We're all leaders in different ways, but we want to be better allies. We want to be better people. We want to support each other better. And that's kind of what the idea is, and to bring people together with like-minded interests, and so that we can accomplish more to support each other, to improve the health of our community and well-being. And certainly our affordable housing work, we're doing some really great things there and to help others. And some of these skills are going to help some of the volunteers and the leaders in that organization to really help to impact and make change. And then we have a whole bunch of other organizations that we're involved with. And then just people in the community who are interested in trying to sort of shop around to see what they can do to have a positive impact. So as Daniel said earlier, we want your ideas. We want some things that you'd like to learn about, that you'd like to offer. And we have a lot of different people in the community, a lot of different organizations that are interested in jumping in, taking a leadership role. If you've been to a workshop before that you think might be helpful. And then we also want to plan and create activities where we can use some of the knowledge that we've learned. So, and then those activities and those events and things are going to benefit the community. So it's all good. It's all about personal improvement, and it's all about community development and building a healthier and a more just and a more unified society. And that's what this is about. And this whole workshop series is the property of the community. And that means whoever the community is that joins us is part of our community. So we're very excited. So Vanessa, did you want to say a couple of words maybe about your next workshop?
Hi there. Yeah, so I was really pleased to see these slides actually are a nice bouncing point into the next one. I hope that was Kismet, I'm not sure, but exactly. So we're having one on the 11th. And like Jasmine said, we're sort of experimenting with new ways because we've noticed a bit of like a trend that we have so many leaders out there, and how do we collectively bring them together? So it's actually about leading with empathetic and supportive sort of traits. So what does empathetic leadership in practice mean? How do we support those that might not have a voice but want to contribute? And especially it's during these challenging times. That's why I put that, because it's even more difficult now to lead and to whatever your leadership form looks like within these challenging times. We've all come out, as we know, the pandemic, and we're exhausted and we're trying to find our footing again on what that means when we're emerging. And so, like Jasmine so well said, it's all about how do we uplift and support and bring together those within this community. So the workshop actual curriculum is going to be a little bit still worked out, but it's a lot of like the Brene Brown sort of things that we're all comfortable with, because it's a nice introductory lead into what does empathetic leadership look like and how can we all contribute within that form. And then we'll have some handouts and some like activities. We're still figuring out if there's going to be a facilitator as well or just myself, but it's open to everyone regardless of age, ability, or everything like that. So it's a real nice jumping point of what you guys did in this excellent presentation about how do we define those strengths-based leaderships, and now how do we bring that into an empathetic and supportive space to lead when things are just sometimes, let's be honest, pretty crappy. How do we still pick it up and get going? So thank you so much again. It's Wednesday, the 11th of May at 7 in the evening. Thank you.
Love it.
Thank you.
Love it.
So
Awesome.
thank you all for joining today's program. I hope what you learned today will help you to identify your strengths. And if you're a leader, I hope it will help you to identify the strengths of others. And if, like what I said earlier, that unidentified strength to me is a brain waste to self-development and the community at large. So I hope we take something away from today's presentation. Thank you all. Any closing comments? Anyone wants to make closing comments? Otherwise, I will say good night, everybody, and have a wonderful night.
Thank you so much.
I wanted to thank Nekpen. Thank you, Nekpen, for being such a great leader.